How do, as it were. Right, well, I've come here. I'm out. Well, it's snowing. We wouldn't believe this, would you? It's the middle of May here, but we've got snow in Lethbridge. Anyway, I've come out here up by my old alma mater. There's a University of Lethbridge, and I'll show you some photographs of that in a minute. And behind me, you can't see with the camera, but behind me, we've got the bridge, the eye level bridge, and it's a grand thing. I'll try and show you some photographs of that as well. But what I'm here for is a couple of days ago I took Finn up to Calgary Land Rover to have some work done. Now, you'll have probably followed the conversations that we've been having on Facebook and groups, but if you haven't, I have identified that there's a DSC issue, and the DSC issue is that you can switch it off here on the control panel. The DSC off, Dynamic Stability Control, it stands for. And you can switch it off while you're off road, and that helps you with your progress, and I'll explain why. So many people, or some people, confuse dynamic stability control with the traction control, and the two things are not the same. So the traction control, TC, is a vestigial thing that came off the very early, not the very early Defenders, but the very early Discovery 2s, and on the LR2, and then prior to that on the Freddy the Freelanders, and then it even appeared a little bit on some of the Defenders. My 2002 had traction control, a Defender 90 I had. So the traction control is a mechanism which applies a brake through the ABS. It sort of works in the opposite way. It applies a brake to a spinning wheel. So let's imagine you've got an axle and this wheel here has got traction and this wheel is spinning. So the ABS applies the brake here, which permits the power to be directed to the wheel that's got the traction. That's how traction control works. And there's a bunch of clicking going on because the ABS is engaged, and there's a bunch of technical stuff that happens. Now, it happens on the back axle as well. And the differentials are not the same. The differentials, if you've got one in the back or you've got one in the centre, they work on friction plates, and they're more or less sort of bound up, if that makes sense, pushed together a bit like a clutch, and allow a bit more slip or less slip or no slip at all. Now the DSC is a different animal altogether. DSC stands for Dynamic Stability Control. And the dynamic stability control takes information from lots of sensors all over the car. There's a gimbal up here somewhere, or a gyro up here somewhere, and it determines what kind of pitch or roll the Land Rover's at. It also determines, there's one in the back, and it determines if the vehicle's sliding sideways, the back's kicking out, all that kind of thing. And it takes information from the brake sensors to tell whether the wheels are spinning, the transmission to see what amount of pressure the transmission's under, what torque it's providing. It takes data from the terrain that you've crossed in virtue of the suspension height. It uses the suspension height instantly to calculate, whether there's a wheel off the ground, all these kinds of things, all of the sensors. And it also takes information from the engine and the throttle position sensor about how much power you're trying to give it, and lots of complicated stuff. And its function, the DSC, is to reduce the power to the engine if it thinks the vehicle is going into a skid or a slip that is dangerous. And so its job basically is to prevent you from skidding, and more accurately to prevent you from powering into a skid, which makes things worse. And what it does is it basically retards the engine. Now, in one of the videos, and I'm going to cut to it magically, like that, you'll see me trying to climb an hill. Here it is, look in front of you, you'll be seeing it now. And I'll try and be quiet for a minute, so that you might just be able to hear in that bit if I've pieced this edit together properly. you'll hear the engine being cut, the power being cut while I'm trying to climb that bank. And what that is, of course, is it's the DSC, which was switched off. Sun mode, DSC off. It's the DSC realising that the vehicle is in a slip situation where wheels are spinning, and it's cut the power to the engine, but it shouldn't be doing that because the DSC was switched off. And in points of off-roading, like hill climbs or sort of aggressive sort of throttle openings, sometimes you need that DSC to be off because you do need the momentum. And you do need full control. I mean, you don't need it all the time, but you do need it sometimes. And sort of precarious hill climbs are one of the places where you need a little bit of wheel spin to be permitted, because what you care about is the momentum rather than, well, you don't just care about the momentum, but you care about getting to the top safely, and sometimes you need momentum and spin to get there. Now, switching the DSC off should, as you would imagine, switch it off. And it has well been known for a long time that Land Rovers don't always switch off the DSC fully. But what is new on this Defender 2020 is that that it cuts in sometimes and won't switch off, if that makes sense. That it's not just the fact that you can't switch it off fully, because that's true of all Land Rovers. What the situation is that it cuts back into its usual self, its usual condition, and the light even bobs back on in some cases, and the DSC is engaged at its normal level, which is, when you're climbing hills and such, could be quite dangerous. Anyway, I've reported this to Jaguar Land Rover. There's been a couple of us kicking them on, not just a couple, there's been quite a few, about 50 of us have found this issue. Ben from New Defender Mods, who if you're involved in the circles, you'll be aware of his builds and development, and his fantastic black Land Rover down under, and he's had this problem as well, and he's been trying to raise it, but I've seemed to have got a bit more traction somehow, perhaps because I've poked the right bear. Anyway, Jaguar Land Rover are aware of this situation, and they originally asked me to come into my dealership for a patch. Now, I understood a patch to mean that they created a specific set of software to resolve the problem on my car and those affected vehicles, but when I actually got up there, it turned out just to be nothing more than a series of software updates, quite deep software updates, but nevertheless software updates. And so I just wanted to talk to you about that procedure. Now, I've got my, well, perhaps you won't see here, but right in front of you is my fantastic Defender 3D tablet mount. Thanks very much to Tim for that outstanding bit of kit. Probably one of my favourite accessories for the Land Rover. And fortunately, it is now displaying to me the list of warranty issues that I sent up the Land Rover with. Now, many of these aren't serious. In fact, most of them aren't serious at all. But it's quite a long way to my dealership. It's 300 mile, and so it's quite and I have to have a day off to do it, and probably a day, and actually a full day, and I have to go up the night before, because in order for the dealership to have it for 12 hours, I've got to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you can imagine I'm not setting off at stupid o'clock just to get there. So I go up the night before, have a night in a hotel, and so on and so forth. So what I did was I packed all of the various issues that affect this Land Rover and asked them to look at them while I was up there, as well as a couple of minor warranty issues that I needed sorted that were defective, if you see what I mean. And I'm going to read you that list, and I'm also going to bob them bloop, along the bottom of the page. It'll appear here. I had originally had an issue with the auto stop start calibration, which is SSM 75001. Now, for some reason or other, it started to work at about 16,000 mile. I think I might have posted something on one of the things, and it started to work a little bit more and a bit on and off intermittently, as it were. After about 16,000 mile, and now it's perfect. It works all the time. So that I didn't include, because it now works all the time. But if that's a problem to you and your auto stop start doesn't seem like it's working right, SSM 75001 is a known sort of service issue that that Land Rover will resolve. And these numbers that I'm giving you, special service message or whatever it's called, or technical service bulletin or whatever, TSB, these are all the names of the things that Land Rover use. There's one called JLRTB, and Jaguar Land Rover Technical Bulletin, presumably. I don't know what that stands for, but anyway, there you go. So the next one is the high beam assist, and the high beam assist is a technology that switches your main beams on automatically. And on these Defenders, you can actually switch that to be on or off. On my old Range Rover, it was just on, but you can switch that to be on or off on here. And sometimes you can't toggle it on at all. It won't. You can press the button and it won't toggle on. And then sometimes when it is toggled on, like 10 or 12 key cycles, and it'll switch itself off. So the high beam assist is JLRTB 02078. And I included that. My rear, the rear camera, the backup camera, has a wash jet on it that is meant to clear the camera when you're backing up. So if you've got the wipers on, it'll wash your backup camera, which is very handy. But mine's never worked in 20,000 miles. And that one is sort of a problem specific to this vehicle. Another issue specific to this vehicle is that my ladder's top cover, actually it's not specific to this vehicle, I know of at least 3 that's failed like that. The ladder's top cover on the side has come off. There's 4 little clips on it, and they come off there's a little leg that sits on the bottom of the cover, and on that's a little plastic clip. Now, for whatever reason, that plastic clip seems to be being pushed back somehow, and it's broken off. I've tried gluing it, and I've tried metal stitching it, and I've tried plastic welding it, and I've tried every sort of thing, and it doesn't work. So that's another thing that's broken. And the other issue with the ladder is it's currently very difficult to open, and I don't know what's wrong with it, because when it first went on, it was just you pulled it out and it was grand, but it seems somehow like it's a bit twisted and not sort of working right. Anyway, I listed that. When I bought this vehicle, this is number 5. When I bought this vehicle, it came with a block heater, and block heaters are needed over here because they're a mechanism in Canada, a mechanism of creating heat in the engine when it's minus 50 outside, which it does get down here. And what that block heater does is it heats it up. It heats up the oil so that the engine's not warm, but the engine's got warm oil in it when you come to start it to reduce engine wear. Now, this vehicle was bought, and in the pack it was bought with the block heater in. And I looked for it and couldn't find it, and so I went back to Jaguar Land Rover and said, "Where's my block heater?" And they said, "Oh, we're waiting for some parts." And I said, "Well, I've paid for it, so you best be fitting it in a hurry." And that was 8 months ago, and they're still waiting for the part. So I don't know whether that's ever going to happen, but that was on the list as well. Now, SSM 75281 refers to failing or leaking air springs on the front. And if your vehicle's air springs are manufactured between some date in August 2020 and some date in August 2021, and some date in May, I think, 2021, then you're eligible to have the springs changed, because there was a manufacturing error and it caused them to leak. So that bulletin refers to those. Now, all I wanted them to do was to check to see whether my vehicle was whether it had the right dates, and I'll discuss that later on. Now, I've also got SSM 25231. I have put in about 3 litres of coolant into this vehicle, and I have been told, Jaguar Land Rover told me that there's no leak. They have checked. I'll go over that in a second. But this special service message is referring to a problem that they've had with the expansion tanks on Defender 2020s. I'm not sure whether that's on all engines or whether that's specific to the P400, but mine has lost 3 litres of coolant somewhere along the line. Allegedly it's to do with a misaligned sensor, but they are replacing the whole coolant expansion tank for some reason or other. Now I've got SSM 75256 and or SSM 75001, which refers to low performance of the turbo or lagging of the turbo, and this is related to P400 and P300s obviously, and maybe even the diesels. I'm not sure. And I've put that here only because I've been having difficulty with mine being very revvy, if you see what I mean, and it's almost like the turbo's not lagging, but it's cutting in a bit too sharply, and there's no progressiveness. It's all or nothing, as you've heard me talk about now. Now I've also got issues where I can't keep my feet warm, and I'm not quite sure whether that's related to this JLR TB 02059 V1 or V2, which refers to some issues with the heater. Now it has been occasion where there's been a sticking blend motor and blend flaps just don't move. Mine doesn't really stick, but sometimes I get a lot less heat at my feet than I would prefer, and a lot more in the cabin. In fact, I can't actually turn the heater mister off. Even if I turn it off the screen, it's always coming out of the screen and not always coming out at the feet, and this is sometimes worse than others. I've got the cloth seats, as you can see here. I've got the cloth edging on the seats and the perforated leathery bits in the middle, and a lot of people have been complaining about these seats getting dirty and the cloth getting roushed, and mine have just started sort of creasing up. I've noticed on the passenger seat. It's all right on mine, but on the passenger seat there's some roushing, and that is related to service issue or technical bulletin or whatever you want to call it, JLR TB 02070 V2. Now Land Rover will at that point clean the seats and attempt to remove the thing, and if you push them hard enough they'll replace them if your condition's serious enough. When I picked up my Land Rover, the raised air intake cap wasn't level. It was sort of misaligned, and I asked them to straighten that, which they have done. They also were meant to be fitting me rear tow hoops, which they didn't fit, and still haven't fitted. The rear wiper on mine doesn't fit when it's at 12 o'clock or sort of 5 to or 10, 5 past or 5 to, or 10 past even. It doesn't really sort of clean that bit because there's not enough pressure holding the wiper blade to the window at the top. It's almost as though the angle's not right. So if you imagine the window's like this and the angle needs to be like that to put pressure on the top, it's almost as if it's too straight, and as it wipes it just doesn't clean that top bit. And I asked them to look at that as well. I also asked them to look at me front wiper squirty jet, which was squirting all over the place, but not against the window. The wireless charger here is inoperative, and it's still inoperative because I've got my phone. Here it is. Look, there is my iPhone out of a case. Look, and if you look, like, no case on it, and this sits in this wireless charger here and should charge, and it doesn't. And they've said they've put several phones in and it works, but it doesn't. Now the other issue was a temporary issue, and that was the fact that every time you shut the doors the wipers went on, but it seems to have sort of fixed itself. I'm not quite sure why that is, but anyway, that seems to have resolved its own problem. And of course the other issue is the tyre pressure. I'm just going to add that the TPS, because it's not on this list here, TPS issue, and then of course the major issue is the DSC issue, which I've just added. There we go, and I've written this down here because I'm going to add these up at the bottom of the screen, as I've told you about. Now it went in for all that lot in one go, which I know is a lot, but in virtue of the fact that I'm quite a way away, it's sort of a bit important that they do as much as possible. Oh, it needed a weather strip as well. I'll add that onto the thing here. Rear door weather strip. Now the rear door weather strip failed, where it has like a curving bit of rubber over the top, and then the bottom bit is the bit that clips into the you know, the little bit of trim or metal that it fits up on, and the rubber had split and was coming away. So if you just gently pulled back the rubber, you could see all the metal bits inside of the clamp that holds it in. So that was torn, not torn actually, it had just failed. It looked like it had been made like that, to be honest, because it didn't look like I've not caught it or anything. But anyway, so check your weather strips to see if they're starting to separate on the back. I have got a photograph of that, and I'll show you now. Look at that, as if by magic. Right, so here we are. This is the piece of paper that they sent me from Jaguar Land Rover. My vehicle was with them from 8 o'clock in the morning, and in fairness to them, they got on the job stat, and they were very kind in sorting me out. I didn't get there until 2 in the morning, and they made available a vehicle for me that I could enter, and I just had to ring this chap up, and he opened the car for me, and the key was in the vehicle. So that was very handy, because it meant that I was able to leave my car there at night, because there was no chance of me getting there for 5, or else I'd have to have 2 days off. So that was very kind of them. I got me VLR courtesy vehicle, which had far better interior lights. Photograph here. And then they had the car all day, and about 1 o'clock I received a phone call asking me if I'd brought the second key with me, because they wanted to reprogram some other module, but couldn't because they needed 2 keys for it. So anyway, what this piece of document says is what they did. So they did replace the seal, the tailgate seal, which was very kind of them. So they've done that, no charge for that, because it was a warranty issue, obviously. Now what they've done here is they have changed the powertrain control modules. I'm going to flick these photographs up somewhere at the side of me, maybe, of these things, so you can actually see, and you can pause to see what I'm reading through. But they've done a number of mapping updates to the modules, and these modules are the electric power inverter converter control module, the battery energy control module, the gateway module, the transmission control module, the transfer case control module, and some other module, body control module. And they've given here on this second page, they've given all of the new software codes, tags should I say, that has been installed. So these are brand new software for all of the modules that have been previously mentioned, in an attempt to resolve this DSC issue. Now, the point of the flashing of these modules is to resolve this DSC issue, and they did take it out the same night. And I'll cut to some video footage of that directly. But the difficulty is that DSC only occurs when you've got 4 wheels spinning and the traction isn't very good. And when we went out, the traction was very good, and that's never been an issue. My arguments about the off-road ability of the Defender or the recent models of Land Rovers has never been to do with you know, how steep an hill it would climb or what angle or whatever, because when it's got traction it'll climb side of an house. The difficulty is when the traction's slippy, or it's snowy, or when it's muddy and it just sits there like you've got you don't seem to have any control over the power somehow, because you've got no resistance in the wheels, and it goes off and does its own thing. And so I wasn't able to fully check whether or not the updates have fixed the DSC. What I can tell you is that on solid ground it did perform a little bit more controlled, or it did perform in a way that was more controlled. You had a bit more sensitivity on the throttle, and a little bit more control, and a little bit more a little less rev and go.
Stop there, reverse back, and see what sort of revs you need to get back up that hill without spinning. It's a proper Land Rover again. Yeah, front wheel's off. What
it's making some spit.
Well, it's doing what it says on tin now, isn't it?
It's 27 to 28 degrees here. $29, $30, $31.
Was it 31.46? Oops!
Too many. Look at that control. Couldn't do that last week. Is there a wheel off the ground here?
No, they're all on. Oh, back wheel's just coming off now. Yeah, your back wheel's well off now. Front wheel's off. There you go, a nice proper cross axle. That's a happy Steve. Yeah.
Look at that. That doesn't ever happen last week.
No.
But I've had it in good ground before, and I did notice that it didn't struggle very much then, so it was a very similar kind of experience. I've got to find a bit of slippy ground and give it some beans and see if we can get that DSC to cut back in. Now, one of the things that I'm very upset about is the throttle position sensor issue, which I kindly shared a video to Jaguar Land Rover, and I posted to my video, to my YouTube account. And I shared it with the general service manager, the video, because as you've noticed from the video on YouTube, you can't, in my vehicle, you can't hold a steady 1500 RPM. You just can't do it. Now, have you noticed what's happening? I'm not moving the foot at all. Can you see what's happening? Not moved my foot yet at all. Keeps going, keeps going. It's a little better in rock crawl mode, but you basically can't hold a steady RPM, because if you pick an RPM, it'll go there and then it'll start creeping up and rev and rev and rev. Now, JLR technical department told JLR Calgary that the software mappings that they performed would fix the issue. And it hasn't fixed the issue. And what I'm annoyed about is not that it hasn't fixed the issue, but they never even checked to see if it did fix the issue. Because when I brought the service manager out into the car and I said, look, here it is, just picked 1500 RPM, and up it went again, and his face was very shocked. He didn't understand why. Well, why is it doing that? I said, I don't know, that's why I brought it in. You're meant to have found this out. Well, the software was meant to have fixed it, yes, but you didn't even check to see if it had. And now you're here shocked that it's doing it. Well, of course it's still doing it, because you haven't fixed it and you didn't check to see if it was fixed. I don't even think they checked to see whether it presented with that fault in the beginning. So they haven't fixed the throttle position sensor issue. I still think it's a mapping on the throttle itself, but I don't understand how these fly-by-wire throttles work. So it may be the case that the throttle position sensor itself is faulty, but I can't say. The rear camera had been, the hose had been pinched somewhere in the back, and I can't find out exactly where, because they were very cagey and wouldn't tell me. What they did tell me on the phone was that they thought it was to do with whoever had installed Tim's very nice Defender 3D lamp, which is nowhere near the bumper of the car, because it's up and not down. And they had accused whoever had done that of trapping the thing. Now, I fitted this probably about last week, a week before, and the thing has never worked since I've had it. So apparently what's happened is it's been trapped to such an extent that it's damaged part of the hose or the connector or whatever it is that it's trapped. and they won't tell me where, but they did accuse me of doing it. Now, I fitted that light, so I promptly informed him that I did not trap anything. Anyway, that's another story. So they did fix it by repairing it temporarily, and they are waiting for a new part to fix that fully. Now, it says here that the hose was trapped between, quote-unquote, the body and the rear junction box, but I'm not quite sure where that is. A replacement part is not available locally. It's only available in the UK. And they've overlaid a new washer hose temporarily while waiting for the replacement part to arrive. The ladder, they looked at that and they said there's a broken part that is missing. And they won't warranty a broken part that is missing because they can't send it back to Jaguar Land Rover for warranty exchange. And I'm a bit grumpy about this because, as you can imagine, it's missing because it's broken, and it's broken because it's defective, and it's defective because it's not up to the job. And so it's a warranty issue, because if it were up to the job, it wouldn't have broken, and it wouldn't be missing if it weren't broken. So I've got a bit of a drama going on here, because JLR have said that they absolutely will not service or warranty this ladder, and the $1,200 plus fitting. And I am not paying $1,200 plus fitting for a ladder which should have been included on the vehicle and wasn't, and I had to push to get it fitted in the first place. And then when it was fitted by a Land Rover guy, it then broke at some stage, and has broken to the extent that a bit's fallen off and they won't fix it. So that's another story. They won't do that. They have agreed to install the block heater, but surprisingly the part they need is still on order. It's only been on order for 8 months. They have straightened my air intake cap and properly resolved that. They could not get the wiper to, this says here, the rear wiper, the fault is the rear wiper not seating properly. And it says here, no fault found at this time. And what that means is, it looks like it's touching the glass at the bottom. And so, if it's got mud on it, or dirt on it, or snow or ice on it, it just won't clear that top sort of 20% of the screen. And so what I think they've done is they've switched it on to see if it goes all the way around, and it did, and then they left it at that, saying there was no fault found. So I'm not happy about that, because they haven't fixed it. The front washer jets aimed incorrectly. What they've done is they've completely renewed my washer jet. I didn't want a new one. I wanted the guy to go in with a little pin and put the jet towards the windscreen, which is where I wanted it. And I don't know why they didn't do that, but anyway, they fitted a brand new piece, which is a waste. It says here now, wireless charger inoperative, no fault found at this time. Now I'm looking at it here, I can't share it to you, because if I take my phone off, it goes off, but it's not working. And I'm going to take this out here, I'll take it off now, and the car's running. I'll put it back, and I wait for it to come on, and it's not charging. So it's not right. It's still not right. They haven't, like they said, they tried 3 phones. Well, they might have done, but it's not working. Main beam assist won't stay toggled on for more than a few days. Updated, and what they've done here is they've updated the headlamp control unit. It says concern was not verified, and in fairness to them, it couldn't be, because once you've toggled it on, it takes a couple of days for it to decide to toggle off again. But it's really irritating, because you can drive down the road in the middle of the night when you want it to be on, and then you realise it's not on, and then you've got to go into settings to try and set it on, and sometimes it won't toggle on at all. I'll cut to a quick video of that now. And you can see when I'm toggling it just won't stay on. And so that, anyway, so what they've done here is it says here, concern not verified, but JLR TB 02078 NAS1 was applicable for the concern. They updated the HCMA and the HCMB with new software to see if that's fixed it. I've topped up the coolant on 3 occasions. Please check and advise. There's a WPO warranty part on order, which I'm pretty sure is the coolant expansion tank. And it says here, concern has not been verified. They've checked the fluid level and it was normal. Performed a cooling system pressure check to check for a leak, but there was no leak found, which is also good. But I don't know how close a look they looked. I mean, in order to look underneath, you've got to pull all the body plates off, the underbody armor plates off, and that's a bit of a challenge. So I don't actually know that they did all that in that time. But anyway, they've done a pressure check, which they can tell whether the pressure leaks. So I mean, it's good, especially from that, I suppose. Recommended installed new expansion tank as per SSM 75231, which I've quoted up here. And that's it. So that's what they've done. What they haven't done is fix the DSC. What they haven't done is, well, it's very unlikely they fix the DSC. They haven't fixed the TPS issue, which was noticeable there and then. They haven't fixed the wireless cooler up. They haven't fixed the wiper on the back. They haven't fitted the rear tow hoops. They didn't clean the seats, and they didn't try to get rid of the roushing. They didn't address the climate control issue. They didn't address the low performance of turbo or measure that on any sort of dyno or run any diagnostics for that. They did tell me that, quote unquote, Jaguar Land Rover North America has not agreed to the SSM 75281, and they won't even check to see if the springs are within those dates. They haven't addressed the block heater thing because apparently they're still waiting for the part. I think they just keep forgetting to order the part, or the part's not available. Yeah, the ladder is another one of those things that they're just not going to look at. So I don't know what to tell you about that. It seems like Land Rover Calgary is saying that if a part falls off your car, they won't warranty it because they can't send the part back in, which I think that seems awfully silly to me. I mean, if you've got a part that's falling off a car, it's not right, is it? It's broken. I don't care whether it's here or not. There's something wrong with the part. It shouldn't have fallen off. Anyway, they won't do it, and that's that. So there you go. So where am I to go from here? The answer is I've got a long list of very minor issues, none of which have been, and two major issues, none of which have been really properly addressed by Jaguar Land Rover. I have passed this result of the issue back on to Jaguar Land Rover in the UK. I have received an email from Jaguar Land Rover Calgary who've asked to send somebody down, if they can send somebody down to drive my car up so that I don't have to have a day off work. That's very kind of them, but I'm also not very comfortable with somebody driving my car all those miles twice. And it's a lot of miles. It's like many hours of driving. And they would bring us a courtesy car down, which is very kind of them, but I don't know that I'm comfortable. I mean, if they were just going to dealership in town, I wouldn't be so bad, but they're not, and that bothers me. So I would probably want to drive it up myself. None of that addresses the fuel costs of the Defender, and I'm sitting in here thinking now, this is probably my favourite. Design-wise, this is probably the Land Rover that I've liked the most, but it's also my second Defender, and it's not getting repaired. They're not fixing it. They're not looking after it. I'm not getting the service. Nobody seems to be interested in fairly major design issues from this DSC issue, or not design issues, that's the wrong thing, isn't it, but the software issues, mapping issues. Nobody seems bothered about the throttle. We couldn't even be bothered to check whether the throttle position sensor actually worked or didn't work. And so it's a sort of an impasse here now, because I have taken it back to them. I have asked them to do the work. They haven't done the work. They haven't been interested in doing the work. They don't seem interested in doing any sort of work. I have tried to get them to pay attention to the issue, but until I'd pushed Jaguar Land Rover in the UK, Land Rover Calgary didn't want to know at all. I sold them they've got an issue with the DSC, and they said they said something to the effect of, until Jaguar Land Rover recognises this issue, we can't proceed. We'll have to wait for our North American support team to get back to us. Well, I don't even think they passed that information on to them. So it was through my contacts in the UK that got this elevated and pushed to the North American support team. And the North American support team did come up with a bunch of responses. But basically what they've done, I'll tell you exactly what they've done without knowing without knowing for a fact, but it seems to me what they've done is they've punched my VIN, found out what software tags my vehicle was developed with. they've realised that the tags are out of, not the current tags, so they've issued the current tags to the new software with the current tags to the dealership and said, get that installed because that'll fix it, without actually looking to see if there's a more substantive issue. Now, I'll tell you that that's exactly what they've done, and they've just fired a bunch of software at it to try and fix it, and it hasn't fixed it because it hasn't. They're not targeting the proper fault. They're not looking at the proper fault. They're just looking for a quick fix. There's probably some sort of protocol or procedure that's going on here. And I think I mentioned earlier on in one of my posts that my issue with procedure is that it can be very slow. And what you actually need is some old school diagnostic techniques. First thing you do is you see if you can recreate the issue. And they didn't do that because they never tried the TPS to generate the fault. Then they try the first thing, which is updating the software. That seems to be a good go, and then they check it to see if that's fixed it. Well, it didn't fix it, so at this point they should have gone back down in the diagnostic tree and said, what else is wrong? Throttle position sensor, throttle position mapping, loom. There's a lot of other different issues that they could have done, but instead they just gave it the customer back and said, yeah, it's fixed, go away. And it's not fixed, it's not right, it isn't fixed properly, the protocol and procedures failed, and I have to now spend another $540 going back up there to have it sort of looked at again, with no hopes of it being fixed because nobody's actually taking the matter seriously. And that's part of the problem. So where are we? Well, I'm now at the position where I'm considering this D5, and I have been for a while. Here it is again. I'll show you this pretty picture. This D5. It's still in Edmonton, and it's for sale because it's the most horrible colour on the inside. It's got a mocha dash with white seats and orange stitching, and I don't know what kind of person would spec such a car, but they need counselling. They need a week in a room with a John Constable painting or something. They need help. It's a horrible colour, and so it's not selling because it's quite ugly inside, and it's not very much better outside. Really, they're not a pretty car, are they? Anyway, so they can't sell it, and so consequently the price is right. And I'm looking at this car thinking, well, like, it's a great car, but it's not right, and nobody seems to be making it right, and it's not available in a diesel, which is very annoying because it needs a diesel. It cost me all the fuel on the planet to move from A to B, and it's not. I mean, it's practical in one sense. You'll have seen by now. You'll have seen my working Defender review video, which I've released. I think it might be released today actually, but anyway, you'll have seen that. And I wax lyrical about it because the design is fantastic. It's perfect for me. And if they got rid of that horrendous lump under the bonnet and threw it away or shoved it in a Range Rover Sport where it needs to be, then this would be the perfect car. But it's not. As it stands, with this pedal and this DSC issue and that engine and its rev and go sort of messing about, all that lack of control, like, it's just wrong. It's so wrong. And a lot of folk have got these P400s and they say, well, mine's fine. And I'm not saying yours isn't fine. I'm not saying you haven't got a good one. I'm not saying that yours isn't operating exactly how you want it to be. What I'm saying is, for my application, and I'm not saying that I want a bloody great tractor in it, engine in it either. I just want it to behave. And so I'm looking at this diesel, this D5 diesel, which is the second most ugliest car on the planet after an AMC, whatever it is. What was that AMC with the off-road wheels? And it was like somebody took a Nissan Bluebird and put a Land Rover suspension underneath it. It was a mess. It's a mess. I actually saw one in town the other day. I haven't seen them for years. Right mess. Anyway, it's an horrible car, the D5. It's not a nice thing at all, but it's horrible inside. But it's $4,000 cheaper in fuel than this vehicle. $4,000 in the miles I've done. $4,000 cheaper. That's half the payments I've made on this car for the year. It's a massive amount cheaper, and you know, it has some bits of different things that this one doesn't have. So it looks like I'm going to have to move to the Defender because Discovery, because nobody's interested in this. I've brought it up with Land Rover. I can't push any more than I've pushed. I can write letters, but what to who? Who am I going to write the letters to? I've already spoken to the top, not the top man, but one of the top men in England, Jaguar Land Rover, and if he's not interested, then nobody is. Customer service in America, we know for a fact, is disinclined to be in the slightest bit interested in customer service. I know that's an oxymoron, but they're not. They'll just let you take them to court, and I can't take them to court because all the money I've got to take them to court is to sign the car. Anyway, that's another story. Right, thank you very much for tuning in. Here's my bit of paper from the dealership that says, you know, what they're going to do. Now, they did say they were going to, here, I've written on the back here, they did say that they're going to submit to the tech line assistance for information and support on the ladder. But the reality is it'll come back, no part not available, no warranty part exchange, so dealership would have to bung out the $1,200 for the ladder, and they're not going to do that because they've already lost a bunch of money on this. So anyway, there you go, that's it. Thank you very much for tuning in. I do appreciate your time. Do subscribe. This looks like an awfully long video. I've just looked at the clock here and it says 47 minutes, so quite half trim some stuff somewhere. But anyway, thanks very much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Cheerio.